Hello and welcome! Hey guys! Whether you're a subscriber to my channel or not, I just wanted to do a really quick video on how I make my overlays. It's not going to be anything fancy, I just kind of wanted to share how I do it. I use Gimp. It's actually a free editing program that you can just get from the internet, and I'll leave the description down below. It's a really nice, user-friendly tool. I've been using it since as long as I can remember. But anyways, you want to get Gimp because this is where you're going to, do all your editing for your overlay and everything. Once you have that downloaded, you're going to go up to File, New. Depending on the size you want your overlay, if your video is going to be 1080 video, you'll want it to match that size. If it's going to be, 720, then you'll want it to match that size as well. So we're going to just do the 1920 by 1080. It's going to be your higher quality anyway. And you've got yourself a canvas here. Right now it just pasted my background as purple because that was my foreground background color here. I'm going to go over to the layer on the right side and I'm actually just going to delete that. That's going to give me transparency. Transparency means if I put a layer on here, it is not going to show. So to give an example, I just went to the internet and found a PNG version of Pikachu. PNG meaning it's a transparent picture. So I copied the picture off of Firefox and then I Control V'd, so pasted right here into Gimp. And there is my Pikachu. Now if I save this file and export it as a PNG as well, then I will only have a picture of a Pikachu, and when I put it into my editing software, the Pikachu will show, the background will not. Now if the background was colored for any reason, so let me make a new layer, and I'll move Pikachu to the front. Now I'll have Pikachu with a black background and so forth, just to give you an example. So anyway, when I'm making my overlays, I usually go to the interwebs here and I'll find something. It just depends on what kind of video I'm doing. In most cases, it's Pokemon, right? So I'll do like Pokemon HD background. And you'll just kind of sift through what you might want to use. If you're having problems finding a picture, or you found a really nice picture that you like and you have to stretch it out and it really drops that quality, you can actually just type in 1080 into Google. And if you look at the bottom left of each picture you go over, it shows you, okay, this picture is in 1920 by 1080. This picture is in 2400 by 1350. So if you can find anything bigger, that's fine. You can shrink it down to fit and it won't reduce that quality so hard. It's when you stretch it out is where you're going to have problems. So again, you find your picture, you just copy it, right-click copy on the internet, and then go back to Gimp and Control V to paste it, or of course you can right-click and paste as well. And I have my picture. Now, just kind of depends on the type of person you are. I don't know how to make my own background or anything like that, so that's usually why I do it. But then I'll edit the picture so that it's, boom, it's not just from the internet. I've kind of made it my own. Might sound bad. So you have filters here at the top. Play around with these. There's a lot of cute, cool ones. So I really like cubism. So if you hit cubism, it will pretty much turn your picture into different cubes based on the pixels. So then I can do something like that. It's changed the picture up. It's not so, boom, this was somebody else's creation. This is my own. You can do the saturation, which just randomizes the colors between them and makes it look pretty cool. A few other things that you can do is if you go into filters, you can add like a supernova, drop shadows if you need. You can enhance it by interlacing it. You can add a border, a coffee stain. My favorite's all this artistic stuff. I can, cartoonify it. That looks pretty cool, I can increase the radius of the cartoonify, so that looks pretty nifty, right? Kind of smoothens out that original picture, because this here was the original picture, and it just looks a little bit different. Another thing you can do is right-click. You can go down to colors, and whether you want to do like the hue and saturation, you can click that. You can change specific colors, so if I just wanted to change blue, and then I could do that. So if I wanted to change all the blue colors, it would do that. You can cancel if you want to take back, or Control Z. I like to do colors and colorize if I needed all one color. You can slide the hue slider to get a specific color, or you can click here and then put in your own values. Okay, so there's a kind of an example, just something I quickly threw together. I filters, and I went to the artistic, and I just cubicized it a little bit. So anyway, we're currently working, this is our background layer. You can double click and name it whatever you want. You don't have to name it if you don't have to. We'll just name it background. I like to then copy this layer. So we'll right click on it, duplicate layer, and then it will just make an exact copy of it. The reason we're going to do that is because we're going to make sure we're on the upper layer, not the bottom layer. We want to be on the top layer. Then you're going to grab your rectangle select tool, and you want to create the border section, the PNG part, the part that's going to be transparent, so that when you insert your image file into your editing software for your video, you can put it right over your video and it's going to perfectly fit in there. So for example, let's say I'm going to do a Pokemon DS game, right? And my main screen is going to be about this big. You can go over to the left here and do the specific size. So if you know what size your main screen is going to be and what your smaller screen is going to be, you can do that. So we'll say right there, the height is 1167 by 1020. And then we're simply going to right click, edit, and cut. What that's going to do is, if you can tell over here, it cut that whole section out of that top layer. So if I hide my background layer, that is now transparent. Those little boxes, you are not going to have any background behind that. It's going to be overruled by whatever you put behind this picture. So I'm going to do that again with the bottom screen. And let's say our bottom screen we're going to, maybe place somewhere over here. And then same thing, right click, edit, and cut. And now we have a place for our main screen and a place for our bottom screen. We can now hide that background layer. I always just make an extra layer in case I mess this one up for whatever reason. I can always go back to this and I don't have to put the hard work back into that. But if I want to hide it away, I can just use this little eye here and it goes away. It's not going to show up on the layer, but you don't have to worry about deleting it. All right, so now we have our borders, what we want to use for our video. So because we want to break the image from the actual video, what we want to do is we're going to create, so select none, we're going to create another layer. So when we hit new layer down here, we want to make sure that it's transparent and hit OK. Then we're going to go to our image. We're going to do right click, alpha to selection. Then we're going to click on the layer that we want to draw on, because we are going to draw a border around these squares to separate these two. So make sure that you've alpha to selected on your background, but you want to draw your outline on a new layer so that you can edit that separately than the actual background copy. So make sure on layer, we're going to go right click, edit, stroke selection, choose whatever width you want, and then whatever line style you want. There's different patterns down here if you wanted it dotted. I've tried those, they don't really work very well, so I just keep it on a custom single line and then stroke. It's always going to stroke the color you have right here on your foreground color. So now we can do right click, select, none. Now we have something to separate the background from the outline where your video is going to be placed. So if I hide that, now we can just see the squares, right? The next thing we want to do, you could keep it just a simple black square, that's totally okay. But what I like to do is actually mess around with it. So if I just hide my background copy, again, you're hiding it, you're not deleting it, it's still there. And then click my empty layer with the box outline. Then I'm going to right click, alpha to selection. And then what that does is you'll see it puts the perforated lines around each of those squares so you can edit them together. The next thing that I like to do is I like to go to the gradient tool, and you have some options in here. You can just choose kind of what looks good. They have some custom stuff, but if you want to choose your own color, your best result might be foreground to background RBG. You can do HSV, which is going to go between the colors, so from red to blue to yellow, or whatever colors you choose. But I'm just going to do foreground to background. Then you're going to change the shape. You can do anything here. You kind of have to mess around with this to see what looks good. And then I'm going to do black to maybe like a dark purple, because my background is more of a dark purple color. So I've got this selected, I've got the colors I wanted, and then I'm going to take my gradient tool and just drag it across. Now it's hard to tell, but now it's more of a purple color. So then I'm going to hit enter if that's what I want. If you don't hit enter, it's not going to apply and it's just going to color the whole screen. So I'm going to hit enter and that is now applied. I will right click, select, none, and now I have my purple. And you'll see down here, because it was gradient, so it kind of spliced it between purple and blue. So if I do this, that's kind of what it looked like, but it only applied it to the box. Then I'm going to unhide and then see if I like that. See how it kind of gives it a little different picture? I've got the border around where my video and lower screen are going to be. I've got my border or my image here, so it's kind of looking crisp, right? The next thing we want to do is, however you want to do this. Let's say we're doing a Pokemon game, for example. And you wanted to add a box for all 6 of your Pokemon, right? That you're going to capture and have on your team. You just want to make your main box after we create a new layer. So we'll create a new layer first, transparency, and we can just name this one box 1. And then we're going to just make box 1 however we want, because we're going to put one here, 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 right? So there's box 1. I want to make sure it's the right size I want and everything. And then I'm going to do right click, same thing. Edit, stroke selection. And 8 pixels is fine. I can use the same line style to keep it consistent. And then right click, select none. Now, as you can see, again, it's going to color whatever your foreground is, but now I have a box here. Now I can utilize that box. I can color it in if I want. Let's say I wanted to do maybe a little darker color. And it's only going to be, because I'm on this specific box layer, it's only going to edit what I have here. I'm not going to be able to edit the whole, anything else, just what's there. So here's a box, and then what I can do is I can click on the layer that I want, copy, paste. It'll say floating selection. You'll just hit new layer. The reason it does that is because it isn't sure if you want to apply it here. So if you hit new layer, it will make that box copy a whole new layer, just like duplicating it. So you can duplicate it or just copy paste. And then we can name that box 2. And then we'll go forth and make 6 of those. All right. So now I have essentially 6 boxes under here that I can place how I want. Now I'm not the master at Gimp. What I do personally is I line them up just by my eye. And then I just continue to move them around until I can figure out how I kind of like the layout. What you can do to get these aligned with each other is if you drag up here above the measurements and you drag down, you'll have that. And then you can just kind of, with the look of your eye, you can align that together. So I can see that this box is a little below it, but now they're aligned that way. Same thing if I go to the left side here, drag that over. Then it'll give me an idea, okay, these guys are lined up. Same thing with the right side. And then I want to line that up so that all the boxes together are about the same distance apart. And then I can take this line down. And you can have as many lines as you need to do this. And then my last one. I'm just going to drag another line down and then kind of see how that looks. I can see that this and this isn't spaced apart very well. So maybe I'll move it up a bit. Move my line. Now I did forget to mention that to quickly zoom in and out, if you hold Control and then use your scroll wheel, I can scroll out with control, I can scroll in with control. If I don't hit the control and I scroll up and down, it's just going to go up and down the layer. But if I hold control and then scroll wheel, I can zoom in and out. Okay, now to get rid of the lines, you just have to throw them back out of the box. All right, so now we got a good layer going on. Then you can click your main to get the border around. So that's looking okay, right? Next we want to maybe get our badges in there. So we'll go to Google and, get all the badges that we need. Let's say we're doing the Kanto badges. When you're looking for images on the internet, you can actually type in PNG and it will prioritize these images over the rest of them. So here's a PNG image of the Kanto badges. I can find them anywhere that I need them. But again, I'll click it, copy, and then hope it's an actual PNG. Sometimes they don't even come over as PNGs. Same thing, it's going to paste it as a floating selection. Make sure you do create a new layer so it actually pastes it on here. And it's not an actual PNG. So and that's the case. I haven't figured out how to delete that. So I just click on the layer and hit the little X here that says delete layer. And I will continue to find an actual PNG. The cool thing is that Firefox, and I don't know, Chrome doesn't do this, and I use both of them, but Firefox, if it's an actual PNG, I think they just updated it, it'll actually give you a more darker background transparency. That tells me, okay, when I copy and paste this into my image, it is actually going to be a PNG. So then it's a floating selection, I'll hit new layer, and here's my badges. Again, I can go to the left to the scale tool, click on the layer, and then hold shift to bring my badges down how I want them. And then hit scale or enter. So here's my badges. Now you got a couple of options here. Let me move it above my boxes. I can copy this layer, so I'm going to do right click duplicate layer. And then on the original layer, I can right click, colors, say hue and saturation, and then I can turn the saturation all the way down and hit OK. Let me hide the upper layer. Now my badges are grayed out. The reason being is because we don't have those badges yet, but as you continue to get the badges in, you can do a few things. What that's going to do is give it its own independent layer there. So when I hide the colors, this badge isn't a very good example because it's already gray. So let me do the second one. So I'm going to go back to the colored copy. I'm going to do the cascade badge, Control C, Control V, floating selection, new layer, and then I'm going to name it second badge. Now when I hide the color layer, I have now obtained 2 badges out of the 8. And if I want to do that again, I can just make sure I'm clicked on the color copy, Control copy, Control paste, new layer, third badge. Now as I hide and unhide these, so I unhide the first badge, the second badge, and the third badge, it's still all in the same location. But it shows, okay, I've gained 3 out of the 8 badges. And then, of course, you can keep going that across the whole layer. Control, copy, paste, new layer, 4th badge. Control, copy, paste, 5th badge. You do just want to make sure that your independent badges that you're cutting and pasting are above the color copy version, because if this guy's on top, it's not going to matter what you do with these because he's overlapping all of those anyway, but you want it to be above your grayed out one. All right, let me finish these ones. All right, so now I have all 8 badges, so if I hide them all, you'll see they're slowly going away. I have 0 badges, and then I got that one, and then I'm going to gain that one, and 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 that one. And now I have all the badges. So that just fills it in for you. You can do another thing too. You're in your grayed out layer. Let's say you want to, instead of even having the picture there, you can right click, alpha to selection, right click, edit, fill with foreground color. Select, none. Now they're just outlines. So when I do post that first badge, it's more noticeable, or the second badge, or the third badge. And then I can just add and remove those as needed. All right, so now we have a general layer here. You know, you can add anything else that you want to it. Text, if you wanted to put a webcam, you could just make another box. If you wanted to put the game title, let's say it was like Pokemon Fire Red. Pokemon Fire Red, PNG. Sometimes you can actually find a PNG version, so copy and then paste it. You then scale it. And then, you know, add anything that you want to that. If you wanted to add text, say we're playing Pokemon Fire Red version. Obviously that doesn't make sense. I know I have two screens like a DS version, but just to give you an example. And then I would name this layer Fire Red logo. And now I have that there. So it's looking pretty spiffy. It didn't take terribly long to kind of create that. And then you can, of course, let's say here in the boxes, let's say our first Pokemon that we got was a Bulbasaur. So you could do a few options, right? You could just find a PNG version of Bulbasaur. Copy. Paste. Create new layer. Make sure that he's on top, because if he's below your layer, he is not gonna show up. So just make sure he's on top of the boxes. You know, move him where you want. You're gonna go to the scale tool, scale him down. Really depends on the image. Sometimes it can distort really bad. You might just have to find another one. You can write text. Let's say that we named Bulbasaur Fruit Loop. So I'll type in Fruit Loop. You can change your color settings here if I wanted that pink instead. On the left side is the best way to do it. So if you do it in this little generated box, you have to make sure you've highlighted all of your text. Then I can click and change it. Or I can go to the left side here and click it and change it that way. If I'm not highlighted. You can also change the text, you know, over here if you want a different font. Different color to make it more noticeable, you can do that. And that's all from this little A tool over here that's called the text tool. So now we have Fruit Loop. Oops. I'm going to go to my Move tool. Whoops. Sometimes you have to kind of zoom in to get it how you need it. And then you want to make sure, of course, that your text layer is over your picture, or the picture. If I move Fruit Loop, for example, above my text layer, it's going to cover that. So I have to make sure my text layer is above the Bulbasaur to do that. Another option that you can do, let's say we just find a Bulbasaur. Just find a cute picture of Bulbasaur that we want to use. So I'll do copy. Hide those layers, Control V to paste it. And then here's my Bulbasaur. Now at the top right, there's opacity. So I'm going to lower that opacity down, because what I'm going to do after I scale it real quick, just in case the picture is for some reason bigger than your box that you want to use, you can scale that, just kind of a square object, is to take your rectangle tool, and I can just go right down where I know that my object needs to be cut off. So let's say right there. Take it on the whole layer I want to delete, you'll let it go and delete it. Same thing with the bottom of Bulbasaur. I'll make sure that I'm lined up with the bottom of the square. If you mess up, you can just click outside of the box. And then go across the bottom, make sure I'm selected everything below that, delete. And then lastly, and again, these little things come in handy if you need to get it right precise. Then I can start my box right there, go up, delete, And then the last one will be right above Bulbasaur. Everything above it, and then select none. You can hit M for your move tool. Oops. I'm going to take these lines away. Raise my opacity. Another line away. And now I have Bulbasaur in my layer there. So that's essentially how I make my layers. Next episode, I'll show you how I put it into the editing program, which I use Sony Vegas Pro. But I'm sure it works similar across all platforms if you can add different video clips and different imaging clips. And I will show you how to do that. So anyway, when you're done with your whatever, you know, your whole layer, I'm going to go to File, Save As, find the document you want to do it in. Create a new folder. I'll just name it Tutorial. Make sure that when you name it, it has that .xcf. The reason being is XCF is the type of file that Gimp opens so that you can go back and edit and change this particular document whatever you want. So I'll just say overlay test and I'll hit enter and it's going to save it. So that just saved it so I can go back and open it in Gimp. In order to get it exported as a JPEG or a PNG or whatever kind of file you want to upload onto your video or onto the internet, you would go to File, Export As, find the location you want. Right now I'm in a test folder tutorial, and you'll see I have overlay test.png. Now if you're going to be putting this in a video file, we need that PNG so that the transparency shows up. If I change that to JPEG or JPEG, it is not going to keep that transparency. It's going to color in these open squares with color. So I'll just make sure it's .png, export. These settings, I just leave them all the same and I just hit export. And now my file is saved as a PNG. So when I drop it anywhere, I can use that. So I will show you. Here's my tutorial folder. You'll see that one of them is overlay test. That's the actual PNG picture. And then this is the GIMP file so that I can open that again to edit whatever I need to edit in there. So if I double click this, and you'll see that it's transparent. I know it's hard to tell. It just colors it into the background color. But if it was a JPEG, that would be black. Those would be black squares. And then when you put it into your editing location, they won't show. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Comment down below if you have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll make a few more tutorials on kind of how to put it in your video software and edit it with your video. How to add and change things so that when you do gain Pokemon, how to add that and how to make it appear in your editing. Go ahead and let me know if you have any feedback. And I hope to see you guys next time. Thank you.